FC Porto is in absolute shambles. Not only is the club in a massive financial crisis after a decade of poor management, but it's also facing major internal issues involving betrayals and division within the fanbase. It is, without a doubt, the most critical point in the last 50 years of Porto history, and today, as an insider, I'm here to tell you all about it. In this video, we'll dive deep into the betrayal that the now disgruntled fans chose to ignore, the good, the bad, and the ugly from this new era in Porto's history. But first, and as usual, let me give you some context. Earlier this year, Porto elected a new president for the first time in over 40 years. Pinto da Costa was synonymous with FC Porto, and I continue to believe is the most successful president in football history. He picked up a failed club, won 2 Champions Leagues, and turned into the most successful Portuguese club if you judge it by the total number of titles. However, as the years passed, Porto gradually lost the tight grip they had on Portuguese football. In the 2010s, Porto spent almost 5 years without winning a trophy, and he only managed to turn that dire situation around with the arrival of Sérgio Conceição. In his first season in charge, the Dragons conquered an unforgettable league title, and over his 7-year tenure, Porto would return to their winning ways, capturing 3 league titles, 4 Portuguese Cups, 3 Super Cups, and the club's first ever League Cup. During this period, Porto was clearly the best Portuguese team, but contrary to what you might think, Conceição was never a consensual choice among the fanbase. Though he was heavily praised for preventing Benfica's 5th consecutive league title with a group of misfits and former loanees, in 1819 Conceição let a huge lead slip even though the team was better on paper. Furthermore, his aggressive posture and immature antics, alongside his inadequate pet bulldog, instigated a lot of instability that was completely unnecessary. On one hand, his typical behavior earned him a lot of respect from the grittier older section of supporters, but it also turned a decent number of fans against him who just wish Porto acted like a professional and serious club. To be a bit more specific, I'm talking about the constant blaming of referees' mistakes and the perpetuation of the us versus them mentality that at this point in time only keeps Porto smaller than what it could be. But honestly, I don't blame Conceição too much anymore. At the end of the day, that has always been his personality. In fact, you could argue that it's gotten better, as he has even admitted that he wouldn't like to coach a player like him. Now, what I do blame is the board that gave him unlimited power to do whatever he wanted as if he was Pep Guardiola. Throughout his tenure, Porto dove deeper into financial abyss, and it was mostly because of him. Conceição didn't allow several players with 1 year left on their contracts to be transferred, such as Herrera, Marega, Taremi, Uribe, Mbemba, Brahimi, and the most ridiculous case, Marcano. Porto let Marcano go for free, which, to be fair, wasn't even that bad at the time, considering he had 1 good season across his 4-year tenure, and his exit opened the door for Mbemba and Militão. The ridiculous aspect about it was Porto buying him back from Roma for more than what he was initially bought for. Well, he's a good header, not a great defender, and he's always injured, but he has been the club's top scorer for a while in the past. Either way, those were just bad exit deals. We didn't even talk about the massive amount of flops Porto acquired under Conceição. Apart from the 30+ Portimonense deals, whose only purpose was to guarantee 6 points every season, Conceição forced the board to buy several flops like Zé Luís, Nakajima and David Carmo, only to fall on bad terms with the last 2. There were many other flops joining the club in his past 7 years, but I'm not sure if it was Conceição that asked for them, so I'm not blaming him. The fact of the matter is that the previous board of directors was full of leeches and imbeciles that didn't give a shit about the club. Even a Porto legend like Vítor Bruno was using the club's funds to get his ass out of debt. I'll go even further and mention that I don't forget sitting in the rain in front of P1, waiting for the team to exit the parking lot and show my support even when they didn't deserve it, only to be treated like absolute trash and completely ignored by the board, the ones who were supposed to care the most about the club. Not even a wave, or a mere sign of acknowledgement, and those were the people making the decisions for Porto, which, now looking back, is a complete contrast to what André Villas-Boas is doing when it comes to treating the club supporters. You see, as a Porto fan, I used to like Super Dragões, I really did. But then my IQ went over 2 digits, and I realized that for the most part, that ultra section is nothing more and nothing less than a group of drug dealers and low-level criminals. Obviously, not everyone is a criminal, but you'd be surprised at the shit that goes down in those away days. People smoking crack in front of kids, pickpocketers constantly looking out for an opportunity to steal from one another, and that tense feeling that you either do what Macaco tells you to do, or you're not welcome around. Oh, Macaco, Monkey Man, Fernando Madureira, the leader of Ribeira, there are a lot of ways to describe him, but I simply prefer to call him a leech. Just like the ones that I talked about dressed in suits, driving Porto's BMWs, the only difference is that Macaco likes to dress in jumpsuits like a Russian man. Because he also steals, maybe not from the club, but from the jackasses willing to buy him tickets. For years he was given tickets for free that he could sell to his ultras and keep the money to himself, and all he had to do was guarantee that the jabronis sang on tune. But you see, there was a problem in Macaco's jungle. A problem called André Villas-Boas. It was clear that if another person outside of Pinto da Costa's sphere of influence took over, his business would be exposed, so he tried everything in his power to suffocate the uprising brewing within the disgruntled Porto fans who could no longer turn a blind eye to the financial atrocities going on in their club. Macaco used WhatsApp chats to instruct Super Dragões members to intimidate and keep every opponent quiet no matter the cost. And just like some good little boys that they are, they obey their master. On paper, it seemed like the perfect move. It always worked like a charm against other clubs or against the players that they weren't pleased with. But this time, it only served to legitimize André Villas-Boas' run for president. Just like how many perceived Trump as a hero trying to be silenced after the attempted murder, Villas-Boas also embodied that savior role, and from that point on, the only way Pinto da Costa could win the elections was if he rigged them. So, Villas-Boas won, Macaco was arrested and banned from the club alongside his wife and two other members that played an important role in suppressing the voices of other fans. Everything's fine then, right? Well, that's not get erased overnight. Porto's new leadership put a stop to the reckless management and there has been less investment compared to other years. But that's not even the worst part. Porto was still able to purchase Samu, in my eyes, the best striker the club has seen since Jackson Martinez, and Francisco Moura, a worthy Alex Telles replacement. The problem was the rift this change in power caused between the supporters. Unfortunately, Conceição and Pep went against their word and chose to take Pinto da Costa's side in a desperate attempt to save the old man from a humiliating exit. So they signed contract extensions that, although they could be reversed if Villas-Boas took over, they still left a sour taste in the new president's mouth. As a consequence, Pep retired and Sérgio Conceição left the club alongside his son and his coaching staff, except for one member. A man who falls asleep under the applause of his conscience. Dare I say a modern day poet that trademarked wearing shorts in the winter, Vítor fucking Bruno. Yeah, that same young aspiring manager that Sérgio Conceição offered an opportunity to back when nobody knew who Vítor was, completely backstabbed his supposed friend. Although Vítor let Sérgio know he would depart his coaching staff to occupy a head coach position in the next season, he clearly stated he was moving abroad, and Sérgio was obviously happy for him and encouraged him to follow his gut. What he didn't know was that Vítor was lying. Despite publicly denying that he would do such a thing as taking his boss's job, he did just that a few weeks later, famously claiming that he falls asleep under the applause of his conscience. To be fair, it was seen as the only viable option to occupy Conceição's role, since no competent manager was willing to work for a reduced wage, and those who were didn't have any previous knowledge about the players and, in my opinion, weren't as easy to tame as Vítor Bruno. Bruno doesn't make demands, doesn't complain, he's just happy to be there. That's exactly what you want when you're managing a club in a crisis period, but there's something that Bruno lacks: leadership and tactical knowledge. Porto's already eliminated from the domestic cup. They've been atrocious in Europe, losing against Bodo, Lazio, and letting a lead slip against Man United, and most shockingly, losing 4-1 against Benfica. I have vividly watched 20 seasons of football. 20. And there wasn't a single time where Porto was more ridiculed by their eternal rivals than that infamous match. And now I wonder, how will Villas-Boas react? So far, he has received unconditional support from the majority of Porto fans. He managed to wake the Dragons up and expose the leeches that were poisoning the club from the inside. But how will he react to these tumultuous times? Honestly, I believe he should just call his former assistant manager Vítor Pereira and offer him the head coach role. I know he's been awful in Brazil in the past couple of years, but Bruno Lage was awful as well and is doing alright in Benfica. Besides, there's a connection between the two, and Pereira has already been champion before, so who knows, it could work. And if it doesn't, it's better than having a guy who never coached before lead the club in this array. Ultimately, Porto looks a lot like Sport in the beginning of the 2010s, or Man United if you want an example from abroad. The fans are divided, there's no clear-cut plan for the future, and the distance to the rivals is growing larger and larger. Unfortunately, many fans are too dumb to realize the meaning of an old-ass quote that I'm too bothered to find the original author. What? Give me a break, it's my off day and it's almost 4:20. United we stand, divided we fall. Porto rose from a local club to a force to be reckoned with because their supporters found a common enemy. The capital city and the clear favoritism that Lisbon received in the past compared to Porto and the rest of the North region. Now, instead of turning against their rivals and seeing them as enemies, which in my opinion was never the right thing to do, Porto fans are now fighting each other. To some, Conceição, Macacos, Super Dragões and most importantly, Pinto da Costa are the embodiment of what's right and virtuous about the club. Da raça, as they call it. To others, Porto needs to move forward and only with a renewed leadership will the club ever achieve that role. I tend to agree more with the latter, but I believe that Villas-Boas has already committed several mistakes. Perhaps the biggest is putting his ego above the club's real needs, but it's also curious how Porto seems to be more tame nowadays. And while I don't miss criminals running wild in Dragão, I also don't want to see Porto turn into a club with no soul for rich pussies. Porto needs balance, no pun intended. And although I'm not nearly as passionate about it as I used to be, I will always root for them and hope for the best. But tell me, what do you think about Villas-Boas' presidency so far? Let me know your opinion in the comments and please like this video. I constantly receive comments asking me why do I have so very little views, and the answer is that I don't know. If I did, I would have more for sure, but I do know that whenever you like a video or whenever you leave a comment, YouTube sees it as a good thing and shows the content to more people, so if you could help your boy out, I would really appreciate you. As always, thanks for watching until the end, and if you want to hear me talk about Benfica, then click this video on the screen. I'll see you there.